Hi everyone, welcome to the sixth cooking video of the lamb stand. Today we're making Pappardelle Bolognese. Bolognese is the ultimate Italian meat sauce, and I'm following the recipe from the Food Lab. And true to style, the Food Lab has got a very complex version of Bolognese. These are all the ingredients for the sauce in the dish, and I'll walk you through them in the order more or less that I'm going to make it. This is what the Food Lab calls umami bombs. They enhance the umami flavor of a dish. With this dish, that includes chicken livers, anchovy fillets, Marmite, and soy sauce. So what is Marmite, you might ask? It's this stuff. I believe it's what's left over when you distill malt for Scotch whiskey. And the English like to spread it on toast. I think it's quite awful that way, but it does really add something to stews and braises. And then there's a mix of stock, milk, and cream. So Food Lab calls for 2 cups of chicken stock. I happen to have a double stock that was a mix of lamb and chicken. So I use that instead, and then 2 cups of whole milk, half a cup of cream, and then you put that in a bowl and sprinkle the packaged gelatin on top of it. Let it sit while you're doing the rest of the stuff. The next is a simple tomato sauce using sauteing in olive oil, garlic, oregano, red pepper flakes, and then a whole can, 28-ounce can of peeled tomatoes in their juice. This is pancetta, which is a sort of Italian bacon, and with some olive oil I'm going to cook celery, carrot, and onion mirepoix. This dish today, which is a mix of lamb, pork, and veal, was inspired by the fact that my guest at the next virtual table on the 20th is going to be Jaster, a pig farmer, Atticus Farm in the Catskills, and he practices regenerative agriculture, believes strongly that animals are part of the natural system and need to be part of farming. Since I had a pig farmer as a guest, I thought I should do something with lamb and pork, and that spells Bolognese. The other guest, by the way, on the 20th is going to be Martin, who's a textile scientist. So that's going to be an interesting combination, farmer and scientist. All these various sauces get added in, along with, believe it or not, a full bottle of red wine. You could use white wine, anything that's dry and not too oaky. And then bay leaves. And then this is parsley and basil. Chop it up, put about half in before the simmer, and then half after. And so all this gets simmered for 2 hours. And then you add a cup of fresh grated Parmesan cheese and a tablespoon of Thai fish sauce. Again, this is a umami enhancer. And then this is fresh pappardelle. That just gets cooked for like 1.5 minutes, drained, and then put in with 5 cups of the Bolognese sauce and tossed. So let's get cooking. So I'm just going to put the soy sauce, Marmite, anchovy, and chicken livers in a food processor and blend it up. Here's the Marmite. So I'm just going to put the milk and cream and stock together in a bowl, and then sprinkle the top with gelatin. I'm just going to sprinkle this on top. Let it sit. I'm going to start with the whole tomatoes and the crushed ones. They're just less processed. And it's easy to crush them yourself. This is a potato masher, and I'm just going to crush them up. And I'm going to use the tomatoes and their juice to make a simple sauce. So this takes 4 cloves of garlic, and I'm going to peel them and then I'm going to crush them. This is 4 cloves of garlic crushed, a teaspoon of oregano, and a pinch of red pepper flakes. I'm just going to cook those in the olive oil for a minute to get them until they get fragrant, and then I'll add the tomatoes. For just a minute, I don't want to burn the garlic, so that's good, and then I'll add in the tomatoes. Now these will simmer for like 15 minutes, just to reduce it a bit. Well, the gelatin is thickening the stock and cream and milk mixture. It's kind of cool the way it does it. The pancetta will be cooked in a couple tablespoons of olive oil first, until it's translucent, and then we'll add in the vegetables. The French call it mirepoix. I'm not sure if the Italians have a name for it. So I'm going to use the Dutch oven that the sauce is ultimately going to be simmered in for 2 hours to do the mirepoix. Start with 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Pancetta goes in on top of that. Okay, so it's been 10 minutes, and these are, the vegetables are softened but not brown, which is the way we want them. And I'm just going to put those in a bowl. This is 4 tablespoons of butter, and put that in the Dutch oven, let that melt. And while that's happening, I'm going to chop up these sage leaves, which are going to cook with the meat. And the idea here is not to brown the meat, just to get the pink out of it. If you brown it, it kind of dries out, so you don't want to do that. But you do want to get it not pink. So it's supposed to be a ½ cup of finely chopped sage leaves. This might be a little more than that, but I really like the sage flavor in this sauce. I'm going to put that in as the butter's melting, and I'm just going to break this meat up into this pan. This is the pork. Obviously, if you do it this way, you want to wash your hands after you do it, because this is raw meat. This is the lamb and veal. So while the meat's cooking, I'm going to blitz this tomato sauce. This is no longer pink, but not brown. And what we're going to do now is add back in this umami sauce, I call it. Umami means essence of deliciousness in Japanese. So everyone thought there were just 4 flavors: sweet, salty, bitter, sour. But there's actually a 5th flavor. And it's the reason why you always, at least people used to add monosodium glutamate to dishes, to get this meatier, savory flavor that's its own category, umami. And those 4 things, Marmite, anchovies, chicken liver, and soy sauce, have a lot of that umami flavor, and it really deepens the flavor of the sauce. So, a lesson in umami. Now we're adding back in the veggies and pancetta. And the order in which you add back in the elements is important because the next thing that's going to go in is the wine, a whole bottle of wine. And we're going to simmer that for 15 minutes to get the alcohol out but leave the wine flavor. If you put this stock and cream mixture in before the wine, what happens is the water in the stock is what evaporates rather than the alcohol in the wine. Definitely put the stock mixture in after the wine. Let the wine reduce down for 15 minutes before you add that. So here goes the wine in. There's a lot of meat in here, that's why you use a whole bottle of wine. I'm going to bring this to a boil and then turn it down to a simmer and let it simmer to evaporate off the alcohol. Parsley and basil are going to go in both before and after the 2-hour simmer, quarter cup each before, quarter cup each after. Now we're going to add the tomato sauce. And this milk, cream, and stock mixture. And chopped parsley, basil, and bay leaves. I'm going to bring it to a boil. And then turn it down to like a bare simmer with a lid ajar. I'm going to let it simmer for 2 hours, and it's going to reduce down. It starts out creamy like this, but then the sauce will break. It'll form a fat layer on top, and then as it reduces, it'll absorb that fat back into the sauce. It's been 2 hours. I skimmed off the fat that wasn't absorbed by the sauce. Food Lab didn't say to do that, but it seemed like a good idea to me. So I grated a cup of Parmesan cheese. I'm going to add that to the Bolognese now. And stir that in so that it gets thoroughly mixed and emulsified with the sauce. And also 1 tablespoon of Thai fish sauce. I'm just going to put these herbs in. So I'm going to put 5 cups of this in the skillet, and then I'm going to boil the pappardelle for like a minute and a half, and then I'll drain it and put it in the skillet with the sauce. This is boiling salted water. This is a pound of pappardelle. And that's just going to go in for 1.5 minutes. And then I'll drain it and put it in the sauce.